Hello and welcome to Gold and Silver Assets. It's Sunday the 22nd of March 2020. So it's been another very volatile week in the markets and we've had news coming in thick and fast. The precious metals have not been immune to any of this, and I'm starting to see some patterns that may signal the next move in gold and the miners. So let's start with gold priced in US dollars on the weekly scale. And the big picture here is that we have this long-term base that's been forming over 5 years. And I would expect, as shown by this red line, for that to form substantial support. Now, we've also got this upsloping channel and price dropped below the centre of the channel. And it found support at around the 1450 level, and then price bounced up last week but met overhead resistance at around the 1500 US dollar level. So my downside target remains in the low 1400, so maybe 1410 or 1420 depending on the timing. And the second target would be around the 1360 level. If we were to breach below the 1360 level, so that's again that red line, which I think is going to provide strong support, anything below that I would be very, very bearish. That's bad news. So targets below that would be looking at around 1230 US dollars, and then below that we're looking at the low 1000s, possibly even sub 1000s, but I find that very, very difficult to envisage that happening. Now remember that these charts are pretty much led by the paper markets, and at the moment particularly there seems to be a divergence between the physical and paper markets. So I wouldn't be waiting for prices to go below this red line because, as I've mentioned in previous videos, price labels are completely irrelevant if you can't actually get hold of the product itself. And certainly we've had listeners report difficulties in obtaining physical metals and also high premiums. So again, the spot price is irrelevant in those cases. So if you are looking for physical metals, I wouldn't wait to buy down here. I'd be buying in this region here and just get hold of it. Of course, that's not investment advice, that's my opinion. So let's have a closer look at gold in US dollars on the 4-hourly scale. And this chart clearly shows that gold has been consolidating over the past week or so. And to me, this looks like it's forming a descending triangle pattern formation. So these patterns, it's 50-50 as to which direction it breaks out. But whichever direction it does break out in, I would expect it to be quite a strong move. And I'd expect the breakout to occur in the next couple of trading days as a estimate. Now, currently we're in a short-term downtrend. So we have lower highs and lower lows. And so we always have to go with momentum and assume that the current trend will continue. So if we're expecting a downwards breakout, we'd expect price to drop below 1460. If we're expecting an upwards breakout, price would have to go above and close above 1511. So those are the levels to watch this week. Now, just as a quick aside, we did have a request from one of our viewers to look at gold priced in Australian or New Zealand dollars. So I'm just going to do a quick look at the New Zealand dollar gold price. And now remember that it's much more difficult when you're looking at other currencies because you've also got the currency exchange factor, which does affect things as well. And certainly the Australian and New Zealand dollars are both commodity currencies, and of course they've been super, super weak recently. And so of course that helps it to hold up the gold price. So it hasn't dropped nearly as much as it has in US dollars. We've had this similar basing formation over the past 5 or 6 years, and again this has formed a kind of triangular pattern. And in currencies other than US dollars, you'll notice that we do have this rising trend channel, but it's much steeper than it is in the US dollar. And again, that's just a signal of the weakness of other currencies compared to US dollars. At the moment, we are kind of at the top of this channel here, and the possibilities are that we go down again to test the bottom of this channel. But again, that's not a huge drop here. Or the other possibility is that we go down to retest the top of this triangle. But in order for that to occur, you would need to see significant strength in the New Zealand dollar, as well as a drop in the US dollar gold price. And I just find that hard to imagine that happening. So this is a very difficult thing to analyse at the moment, purely because of the huge volatility in currencies at the moment. Moving on to silver in US dollars on the weekly scale. And I quite like this chart as a great example of why I like technical analysis. Now, there are lots of people who say that technical analysis is all hocus pocus, price action is completely random, and there's manipulation, which means that it's completely useless. Now, I'm not saying technical analysis is perfect, far from it, but I do think it does have some value, and this chart shows exactly why. So, as many of you will remember, I drew this red line months and months ago, and in last week's video we talked about this downsloping channel, and I did give this target in the mid $11 region. And I haven't moved these lines at all, and interestingly, as we saw last week, price paused briefly at this red line, and then in the past week it plummeted down and bounced off the bottom of that channel. Now, you can't tell me that that's just chance. So I think that these lines do have some degree of value. So the big question now is, where do we go from here? Will this channel line hold, or will price break through it? And there's a few potential options here. One is that if this does hold, then we're going to get some kind of bottom-in formation before we make the next move up. If we break through this channel, that's going to be very, very bearish, and we could be looking targets of 8 or even lower. I don't think lower prices are particularly sustainable, so I don't think they'll last very long. And actually, I'm actually surprised that we've even got to these kinds of levels in terms of the silver price. Right now, I think we're already at bargain bucket prices, particularly if you're looking for physical. So again, for those physical buyers, I wouldn't really wait for lower prices, because the premiums are going to just negate that anyway. And just looking at silver on the 4-hourly scale in US dollars, this doesn't really tell us that much. There's not really any easily discernible pattern. We just seem to be consolidating, and I don't know whether this is going to form a bottoming pattern or just it could possibly be a bear flag. So there's the flagpole, and this could be a flag, in which case another big drop might be on the way, but it's very difficult to tell. So we'd want a breakthrough below the lower channel line to determine which of those options is going to occur. So let's move on to the GDX on the weekly scale, and this has been super volatile. It's been like a roller coaster ride. This chart gives us the big picture of what's going on, and I suspect now, initially we were talking about a possible triangle, but that broke down, and so now I'm thinking this may be a horizontal channel, in which case the prices may reach the 2016 lows, but there's nothing to say it can't go lower. With what's going on in the economy, I find it very difficult to think that these prices are going to shoot up very quickly at the moment. That's why I'm thinking we're going to have more downside over here. And one of the things that I'm concerned about is that, because of course there's lots of restrictions of human contact and changes in kind of working practices, how's that going to affect the mines? Because of course you need humans to run these mines, and are they going to be able to continue with their production? So that is a significant concern here. Now, the other thing to notice is that although we've had a big bounce back up in the minors. This has not been confirmed by the RSI. We've actually only had a very weak increase in the RSI, and this is still in a downtrend. So again, that makes me concerned that we're going to have more downside coming in the minors. Let's look again more closely at the GDXJ, but on the daily scale. And this again shows that we remain in a downtrend with lower highs and lower lows. We also seem to have been consolidating in the past week, and although it seems very steep, it just to me looks like it's forming a symmetrical triangle. And because we're in a downtrend, these patterns are often, but not always, a continuation pattern, which again makes me think this is likely to break out on the downside. So I do think that our back up the truck moment is approaching, although it is notoriously difficult to pinpoint bottoms and to catch reversals. So we'll just have to keep a close eye on this. And to all my viewers and subscribers, be careful out there, stay well, and your likes, subscribes and comments are very much appreciated, and they do really help keep me motivated to keep doing these videos. I enjoy hearing from you guys, and all the best, and see you next week. Bye.